There is a fear that many women over 50 carry quietly, not out loud, not in the doctor's office, not even with their closest friends. Just privately, in the small moments, when the word disappears mid-sentence, when the thought dissolves before it lands, when you walk into a room and stand there completely blank, wondering if this is the beginning of something you can't come back from. Most women never say that fear out loud, because saying it makes it real. And if it's real, you have to face the possibility that the sharpness you once had, the quickness, the confidence, the feeling of being fully present in your own mind, might not be coming back. I want to speak directly to that fear today, not to dismiss it, not to rush past it, but to tell you something that I believe with everything I know about women's health after 50 is the most important thing you may hear about your brain this year. What you are experiencing is real. The fog is real. The forgetting is real. The moments where you feel like you're watching your own life through frosted glass, real. But for most women over 50, it is not what you are afraid it is. It is not your mind failing. It is your brain sending a very specific signal about a very specific kind of support it is not getting. And once you understand what that signal is, everything about your cognitive health starts to look different. What surprised me most over the years is how many women blame age for symptoms that have much more to do with what's happening quietly behind the scenes: disrupted sleep, elevated stress, hormonal shifts, and blood sugar fluctuations that are leaving the brain chronically underfueled. I've spoken with women who thought they were simply getting older, when in reality their bodies were communicating something precise and addressable. And what genuinely fascinates me about the brain is how responsive it can be. Sometimes even small, consistent daily changes help women feel more focused, more present, and more like themselves again. Brain fog after 50 does not automatically mean you are losing your mind. Sometimes it means your body is asking for support in ways no one ever taught you to recognize. And today we are going to talk about exactly that. I'm Sarah Mitchell. I've spent years studying hormonal health, cognitive wellness, and the everyday habits that help women over 50 reclaim their mental clarity and sense of themselves. If you're new here, welcome. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming. And if this video is already reaching something you've been holding privately, a thumbs up helps more women find this when they need it most. Before we begin, I also want to mention the Hormone Reset Guide, a complete daily system for women over 45. Module 4 covers sleep, stress, and cortisol in depth, all of which have a direct and measurable connection to cognitive clarity after 50. There's a bonus included called the Hormone-Friendly Morning Routine Checklist, because how you begin your day shapes how your brain performs through every hour that follows. The link is in the description and pinned in the first comment. And as always, everything I share here is for educational and informational purposes, based on wellness principles and good practices. It is not a substitute for personalized medical care. Please continue working with your healthcare provider about what's right for you. Now, let's talk about what is actually happening. Because the brain after 50 is not simply aging, it is adapting, and in many cases struggling, in response to specific physiological changes that most women were never told to watch for. The most significant of those changes has to do with energy, not the kind you feel in your body, the kind your brain cells need to function, to communicate, to remember, to think clearly. And for a growing number of women in this life stage, that energy supply has been quietly, gradually, and entirely preventably compromised. Not by time, by something else entirely. Let's start with a question. Answer it honestly, just for yourself. Do you need to eat every 2 or 3 hours to avoid feeling irritable, scattered, or mentally foggy? Does delaying a meal, even by an hour, leave you feeling like your thinking simply stops cooperating? If your answer is yes, That is not a personality trait or a sign of low willpower. That is a specific, measurable signal from your blood sugar regulation system. And it has a direct, documented connection to cognitive performance after 50. Here is the mechanism. The brain accounts for roughly 2% of total body weight, but consumes approximately 20% of the body's total energy. Its primary and preferred fuel source is glucose. When blood sugar is stable, the system functions well. When blood sugar fluctuates significantly, spiking sharply after meals high in refined carbohydrates and then crashing, the brain experiences those fluctuations in real time. The mental fogginess, the difficulty concentrating, the sudden irritability, the sense of cognitive fatigue that appears without obvious cause, these are frequently not age-related decline and not stress responses. They are the brain's direct reaction to an unreliable fuel supply. After 50, this dynamic compounds meaningfully due to declining estrogen. Estrogen has a documented role in regulating how efficiently neurons take up and metabolize glucose. As estrogen declines through perimenopause and menopause, that metabolic efficiency decreases, meaning the same diet that once supported clear thinking may now be actively undermining it. Research consistently identifies the hippocampus, the brain region most directly responsible for memory formation and new learning, as particularly vulnerable to this reduced glucose metabolism. This is not structural damage. It is a fuel delivery impairment, and fuel delivery impairments are addressable. The most evidence-supported starting point is blood sugar stabilization through dietary adjustment. Reducing refined carbohydrates and added sugars removes the primary driver of those blood sugar spikes and crashes. Prioritizing protein and quality fats at every meal slows glucose absorption and smooths the delivery curve. Avoiding extended gaps between meals prevents the mid-afternoon and early evening crashes that many women over 50 experience as their most cognitively difficult periods of the day. These are not extreme interventions. They are precise adjustments to an imprecise fuel supply. And for many women, the cognitive effects become noticeable within days. In practical terms, this often means beginning the day with a protein-forward breakfast, rather than carbohydrate-dense options like toast, cereal, or fruit juice alone. It means including a source of protein and fat with every meal rather than consuming carbohydrates in isolation. It means recognizing the mid-afternoon energy and focus drop, often experienced as a craving for something sweet or the need for a second cup of coffee, as a blood sugar signal rather than a caffeine deficiency, and responding with a protein-based snack rather than a sugar-based one. None of these adjustments require dramatic sacrifice. They require precision, and precision, in this context, delivers measurable results. Now, a second question, and this one may explain something you have never been able to account for. Do you wake up consistently between 2 and 3 in the morning without a clear external cause? No noise, no dream you can identify. Simply suddenly awake, mind active, sometimes accompanied by a low hum of anxiety or a racing quality to your thoughts. If this is a regular pattern, the most common assumption is that it reflects stress or a hormonal sleep disruption. The research, however, points to a more specific and frequently overlooked mechanism: a nocturnal blood sugar drop. When blood sugar falls below a threshold during sleep, the body initiates a hormonal recovery response, releasing cortisol and adrenaline to restore blood glucose to safe levels. That response is efficient and necessary. It is also precisely what wakes you up. The waking is not the problem. It is the body's solution to the problem. And the problem is blood sugar instability at night. The cognitive cost of this pattern is substantial and cumulative. Sleep is the period during which the brain executes its most critical maintenance processes, clearing metabolic waste through the glymphatic system, consolidating memories, repairing the synaptic connections that support clear daytime thinking. When sleep is fragmented night after night by nocturnal cortisol surges, those processes are interrupted. The result is not merely tiredness. It is a measurable degradation in the cognitive resources available the following day, and the day after, and the one after that. A small protein and fat-containing snack in the hour before sleep, walnuts, a boiled egg, a tablespoon of almond or nut butter, may buffer overnight blood sugar against that nocturnal drop, reducing the frequency of those cortisol-driven wakings. For many women, this is the single adjustment that has the most immediate and noticeable effect on both sleep continuity and next-day mental clarity. Now, I want to pause here, because if these first two mechanisms are connecting things that have felt separate and unexplained in your own experience, I want to make sure you have somewhere to take this further than a single video can go. It's called the Hormone Reset Guide. Module 4 covers sleep, stress, and cortisol in precise, practical detail, including the blood sugar and cortisol connection that drives nocturnal waking, and the specific daily habits that may support more restorative sleep and clearer cognitive function after 50. The included bonus, the hormone-friendly morning routine checklist, directly addresses cortisol rhythm from the moment you wake, because how you begin your day determines how your brain performs through every hour that follows. The link is in the description and pinned in the first comment. The third question, and this is the one that tends to produce the most immediate recognition. After a meal high in refined carbohydrates, pasta, bread, white rice, something sweet, do you experience a distinct mental slowdown within 1 to 2 hours? A heaviness of thought? A loss of the sharpness you had before eating? A pull toward sleep or mental disengagement that feels disproportionate to what you ate? If so, that response is not coincidental. It is a precise indicator of a nutrient depletion most women over 50 have never been told to consider. When blood sugar spikes significantly from refined carbohydrates and sugars, the kidneys excrete vitamin B1, thiamine, at a rate research estimates to be up to 16 times higher than baseline. B1 is not a peripheral nutrient. It is an essential cofactor for mitochondrial energy production, specifically for the enzymatic processes that convert glucose into ATP, the form of energy brain cells actually use. Without sufficient B1, the conversion pathway is impaired. Glucose is present, the fuel is there, but the mechanism that transforms it into usable cellular energy is blocked. The brain, which has no meaningful energy reserve and cannot tolerate even brief supply interruptions, responds immediately, with exactly the kind of cognitive heaviness many women experience after carbohydrate-dense meals. This depletion effect is compounded by the composition of refined carbohydrates themselves. Food processing removes over 85% of naturally occurring thiamine from refined grains. A diet high in these foods simultaneously drives up B1 excretion and provides almost none in return, creating a compounding deficit that accumulates over months and years. A fat-soluble form of B1 called Benfotiamine has emerged as particularly relevant in current cognitive research. Unlike standard thiamine, Benfotiamine crosses more effectively into brain and nerve tissue. It is currently the subject of a large-scale Phase 2 clinical trial by the National Institute on Aging, examining its role in supporting cognitive function and reducing the toxic byproducts of chronically elevated blood sugar in the brain. Earlier research suggests benfotiamine may support myelin integrity around nerve fibers, assist in clearing advanced glycation end products, cellular debris formed when glucose binds abnormally to proteins, and help restore the mitochondrial energy pathways that neurons depend on. This research is ongoing, and supplementation decisions should always involve a healthcare provider. But the scientific interest in benfotiamine and brain health is substantive and growing rapidly. What matters most about benfotiamine is that it cannot do its work in isolation. Research consistently shows that B1 supplementation produces the most meaningful results when combined with a reduction in the refined carbohydrates that are driving the depletion in the first place. Taking B1 while continuing to consume a high-carbohydrate diet is like refilling a bucket with a hole in it. The approach that the emerging research supports, and the one that makes the most physiological sense, is reducing refined sugar and carbohydrate intake alongside B1 support, giving the nutrient the metabolic environment it needs to work. This is not a complicated protocol. It is a targeted, evidence-informed pairing that addresses the root mechanism rather than just the symptom. What these three mechanisms share: disrupted glucose metabolism, nocturnal cortisol-driven sleep fragmentation, and B1 depletion from refined carbohydrate consumption, is that none of them are inherent consequences of aging. None of them are irreversible. None of them require accepting cognitive decline as inevitable. They are physiological signals with physiological causes, and once those causes are identified clearly, they can be addressed. Not perfectly, not without effort, but with a specificity and a directness that generic aging advice never provides. The fog you have been living with likely has a cause, and that cause is not time. I want to take a moment before we close and speak to something you may have been carrying for a long time: the fear that your mind is going, the quiet private worry that the fog means something permanent, the moments of forgetting that you've brushed aside in front of others but replayed alone, wondering if this is the beginning of a decline you cannot stop. That fear is one of the heaviest things a woman can carry, because it touches not just health, but identity, the sense of who you are, how you show up, how much of yourself is still there. I want you to set that fear down. Not because I'm dismissing it, but because everything we covered today points to a different conclusion than the one that fear keeps whispering. Your brain is not failing you. It is communicating with you. It is telling you, through symptoms you can now name, that its fuel supply has been unstable, that its nighttime restoration has been interrupted, that a nutrient it depends on has been quietly depleted by decades of a food environment that never accounted for what a woman's brain needs after 50. These are not signs of deterioration. They are signals. And signals, unlike decline, can be answered. The fog lifts when the fuel stabilizes. The 3 a.m. waking changes when the blood sugar is supported through the night. The post-meal mental heaviness eases when the refined carbohydrates that strip B1 are reduced and the nutrient that unlocks brain energy is restored. These are not speculative possibilities. They are physiological sequences with documented mechanisms, and they are available to you. So here is what I want you to do this week. Not all three things at once. Just one. If the blood sugar question resonated, the needing to eat every 2 to 3 hours, the cognitive fog that arrives with the crash, start there. Tomorrow morning, build breakfast around protein instead of carbohydrates. Eggs, Greek yogurt, something that gives your brain a stable start rather than a spike and drop. Just one meal. Notice what your thinking feels like by mid-morning. If the 3 a.m. question was the one that stopped you, try a small handful of walnuts or a teaspoon of almond butter in the hour before bed tonight, just tonight, and notice whether your sleep feels different. If the post-meal question was the one that felt most familiar, simply begin reducing the refined carbohydrates at 1 meal per day this week. Not all of them. 1 meal, give your brain 1 less fuel disruption per day and see what it tells you. 1 change. 1 week, because that is how the fog begins to lift. Not all at once, but in layers, as the body receives what it has been asking for. If you want a structured, practical framework that brings all of this together, the blood sugar support, the cortisol and sleep connection, the morning routine that sets your brain's rhythm for the day, I want to remind you about the Hormone Reset Guide. Module 4 is where sleep, stress, and cortisol come together with the specific daily habits that may support clearer thinking and more restorative nights after 50. The hormone-friendly morning routine. Checklist is included as a bonus. Because the first 30 minutes of your day shape more of your cognitive performance than most women realize. The link is in the description below and pinned in the first comment. If today's video opened something for you, that is the next step worth taking. I want to close with something I believe deeply. You are not losing yourself. You are navigating a physiological transition that is real, that is significant, and that most of the information you've been given was never designed to address. The fog was not inevitable. The fear was not the truth. The cause was simply waiting to be named. And now you have 3 names for it. Think about what it means to walk through your day with a brain that has what it needs. To be in a conversation and stay fully present without losing the thread. To read something once and have it land. To move through the afternoon without the heavy, slow-motion feeling that so many women over 50 have come to accept as their normal. To trust your own mind again, not because nothing has changed, but because you understand what changed and you know what to do about it. That is not an impossible picture. That is what becomes physiologically available when the fuel is stable, the sleep is uninterrupted, and the nutrients that unlock brain energy are no longer being depleted faster than they can be replaced. It does not happen overnight, but it happens. And it begins with one honest question answered honestly. And one small change made this week. Your brain isn't broken. It has simply been underfueled. And now that you understand how to feed it differently, everything that felt fixed begins to move. Thank you for being here today. I'll see you in the next one.